I'm in my math practice worksheets packet, and I'm going to show you how to do multiplication as comparison on pages 15, 16, and 17. It's 3 pages, but trust me, it's not very hard. Okay. This first page is looking at all the ways that we talk about multiplication. When we compare two numbers using multiplication, we use phrases like times as many as, times as much as, or times as long as. So what I'm going to do for this page is just write some equations that go with these phrases. So for example, times as many as. This is a picture of 12 is 6 times as many as 2. So I'm going to write an equation that goes with that phrase. 12 equals 6 times as many as 2. Another equation that you could write is the opposite. 12 equals 2 times 6. $1 is 4 times as much as a quarter. So I could write, now $1, I can't say 1 equals 4 times a quarter. That doesn't quite work. So I have to think about $1 is 100 cents. That's 4 times as much as 25 cents. So I could say 100 cents is equal to 4 times as much as 25 cents. And I could also write the opposite equation because we know that multiplication is commutative. You can flip it around and get the same thing. So for the last one, you're just going to write an equation that matches this phrase. 1 foot is 12 times as long as 1 inch. And you can write the equation and then the opposite equation, okay? That's all you got to do for that page. And this page is showing similar phrases, but with a tape diagram instead, since we use a lot of tape diagrams for solving word problems. We can use a tape diagram to show how two numbers compare to each other in terms of multiplication. For example, how do the numbers 35 and 7 compare to each other in terms of multiplication? If this is 35 and this bar is 7, we can determine how many lengths of 7 fit in one length of 35. You need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars of 7 to equal 35. We can see that 5 lengths of 7 fit in one length of 35. So we can say that 35 is 5 times as many as 7. That whole big part is just an example. Now we're going to try it ourselves. How do the numbers 48 and 6 compare to each other in terms of multiplication? Draw a tape diagram to represent this comparison. 48 and 6. So I'm going to look at this one, see if that can help me. We can see that 5 lengths of 7 fit into one length of 36. So if I have a length of 48, how many 6s fit into 48? So I'm asking myself, 6 times what equals 48? So if this is 48, how many 6s do I need to equal 48? And I know that 6 times 8 is 48. So I'm going to try to draw 8 boxes of 6. Now my drawing is definitely not going to be perfect, and it's okay if yours isn't either. I'm just trying to show that 48 is 8 times as many as 6. And this will help me when I go to solve word problems on the next page. 48 is 8 times as many as 6. And now the next page, you're going to put those phrases into practice by solving a few word problems. Let me show you how to do the first one. Solve these problems using a tape diagram to represent the comparisons. Problem 1. There are 28 students in a 4th grade class at Sequoia Elementary, but there are only 4 basketballs. How many times as many students are there as basketballs at Sequoia Elementary? So I'm going to say there's 28 students and 4 basketballs. How do those numbers compare? One way you can think about it is to first write an equation. 4 times what equals 28? And that will show me how many times as many students are there as basketballs at Sequoia Elementary. I know that I have to have 7 fours to get to 28 because 4 times 7 is 28. So I could say there are 7 times as many students as basketballs. So what I did was I drew a tape diagram, I wrote an equation, and then I wrote a sentence using the phrase as many students as. In the second problem, you'll do the same thing. An adult giraffe is 20 feet tall. A wildlife photographer is 5 feet tall. How many times as tall is the giraffe as the wildlife photographer? So I would say 25. How many 5s do you need to get to 20? And I can write a phrase using as many times as tall as. And then in the third problem, a new copy of a book costs $5. A used copy of that same book costs only 50 cents. How many times as much does the new book cost as the used book? This problem's a little tricky because you're going from cents to dollars. So you might want to think about changing this into cents or this into dollars. That's a half a dollar, or that's 500 cents to do your comparison. And then I'll use the phrase as many times as much as in my final sentence. You can try those too on your own.